Hello and welcome to the Scatterable channel, and today let me show you guys the best PCs you can build in early 2026 despite the memory shortage. So I'm going to be presenting to you guys 5 different PC build lists starting from $800 being the budget one, going up to $2,000 being the premium one, and I'm going to be doing also very easily on my website pcbuilds.gg. All the build lists are going to be available right here if you just want to quickly check them out. Otherwise, I'm going to be explaining each of these PC part lists, why I went with certain components, what sort of performance and use cases to expect. And without further ado, we're just get straight into the budget PC build list. Do note though, I'm in the US region and your country could vary. It could be somewhere else. It could be Australia, somewhere in Europe. But otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and set the price slider here going down to around 800 bucks. Show me. There is our $800 gaming PC build. Let's go ahead and click on that. Oh yeah, I should mention, each one of these build guides have their own attached tutorials. So if you wanted to see exactly from start to finish how to build one of these PC builds, since the part layout and the cases are very similar to what I used in those build guides, those will also be available with each of these build lists. So for our $800 PC build list for 2026, we have to go with the Intel Core i3-12100F. Reason being DDR5 memory prices. I tried and I could not get a good PC build list whatsoever that had DDR5 memory below $1,000. So we have to go with a last generation CPU and motherboard that support DDR4 memory, and the best platform for that right now is Intel Core i3, i5, i7 on the LGA 1700 socket. I recommend going with this over AMD because the top of the line AMD AM4 CPUs you could upgrade to would be the 5800X3D and 5700X3D on the AM4 socket, both of which are very hard and very expensive to get your hands on, unlike the Intel options on the LGA 1700 socket like the 14600KF or even the 14700KF, all the way up from this i3 option. Otherwise, this is a basic 4-core 8-threaded CPU for 1080p. This is going to be completely fine with our entry-level graphics card we're pairing with this processor. Then for the CPU cooler, a basic, cheap 4-heat pipe air cooler is all you need. You don't need anything fancier than that. Save your money. I guess if you wanted to, you could go with the stock cooler that comes included with the i3 if you really wanted to save money. That'll be fine. But then for the GPU, for our CPU and GPU combo, we have the Intel Arc B570. This is about $230 to $250 right now, especially given the memory shortage. This is quite impressive because it has 10 gigabytes of VRAM and is a really solid 1080p gaming graphics card. This will run just about most of the games you want to play on this PC, but only at 1080p at anywhere from medium to ultra settings depending on the game, anywhere from 60 frames per second to even as high as 240 depending on the game. But if you're thinking of doing any serious ray tracing, you're going to want to spend more. Anyways, the rest of the build is really straightforward. For the motherboard, you can go with a B760M DDR4 motherboard. I want to emphasize DDR4 because we have to use DDR4 memory with this system and with the micro ATX form factor that comes included with Wi-Fi. Because for the case, we're going with a PC case that I used in my budget gaming PC template video from not too long ago, that being the Antec Flux M. It's a really awesome chassis. I used this with Antec and Fantex before, and yeah, I mean, it's just really good for the money. Comes with, I think, 6 included fans for 70 bucks. It's a no-brainer. Which then brings us back to memory because we have 16 gigabytes of DDR4 memory running at 3600 megahertz with a cache latency of 18 or 16. This one surprisingly is 16, so I don't think it's updated yet. Or actually, I don't think I've even changed this. This shouldn't be 170. There's actually a cheaper RAM kit you can get for about 120, which should be in this build list. So I'll go ahead and correct this after the video. Otherwise, we have to go with 1 terabytes of M.2 storage. I will not settle with 500 gigabytes. That is just too little for an operating system, your programs, and any games you possibly plan to download and store onto your SSD. So yes, we're going to have to stomach the $140 price tag for a DRAM-less SSD. It's not even the ideal SSD I'd like, but memory is at a premium right now, and these DRAM-less SSDs are going to be fast. They're not going to be as premium as a DRAM DRAM supported drive, but it'll do for a sub $1,000 build. Then for the power supply, a 650 watt 80 plus bronze will easily power that i3 and whatever GPU you pair up with it. That isn't like an RTX 5070 or RX 9070. And that is just about it. The $800 build, this will be great for 1080p gaming, and that i3 and Arc B570 combo should be better than most pre-builds you would compare it to for about 800 bucks. Otherwise, let's go back to the website and hit reset. Let's set the price slider to just under $1,000, sort by price ascending, and there is our $1,000 gaming PC build, which is up next. This one fortunately uses DDR5 memory on a newer platform, so versus the $800 build, I definitely would pony up an additional 200 bucks to build this. For the CPU, we have the AMD Ryzen 5 7500F, 6 cores, 12 threads on the AM5 socket, and right now on Newegg, at least here in the United States, you can pick one up for 131 bucks. That is very impressive. That is Black Friday pricing, which I think is more of a sign that PC building has sort of slowed down, and everything else other than memory is actually going down in price a little bit. Then for the CPU cooler, same one as the last one, but then for the GPU, for the CPU and GPU combo, I have the Intel Arc B580. This could be had for 300 bucks with this ASRock model, but when it does come back in stock, there is this Onyx Odyssey model, at least here in the US, available on Walmart or Newegg for $290, and this is the one I would get. I used the white version of this exact graphics card in my $800 PC build from last year. I was really surprised by the build quality and the finish of the GPU shroud, and the performance was really good entry-level 1440p gaming for just about anything that wasn't serious or intense ray tracing. And if you're wondering if you should get this graphics card or the RTX 5050, if the RTX 5050 is the same price as the Arc B580, do not get it. But if you can find an RTX 5050 for at MSRP or below, then it's worth considering. But note it has 8 gigabytes of VRAM versus the Arc B580's 12 gigabytes of VRAM. Then for the motherboard, since we're on the AM5 socket, we're going to want to go with an AM5 motherboard. And once again, we're going with the micro ATX form factor to save on money with a smaller motherboard. No wrong in doing that. And we have the ASRock B850M Pro A Wi-Fi 6E. This is going to be fine for our Ryzen 7 processor, Ryzen 5, and should be fine for most CPU upgrades that aren't going to be a 12 or 16 core CPU in the future, which for those of you who are building the system, I highly doubt you're going to be upgrading to. Potentially the most we're going to throw into this is an 8-core X3D CPU, which with an undervolt should be totally fine for this entry-level motherboard if you're just doing gaming. Then for the RAM, this is the new meta. You're going to have to go with 16 gigabytes of DDR5 memory. I've actually done the math and I've compared 16 gigabytes of DDR5 memory with 16 gigabytes of DDR4 memory, and there is about an $80 to $90 difference. However, if you were to say do this exact system with an older Intel Core Ultra 5 CPU with DDR4 memory, those older CPUs are actually more expensive than the 7500F we're using in this system by about 30 to 40 bucks. So in reality, you're only spending about an extra $50 to be on a newer socket with a newer CPU that is faster on a superior CPU platform that offers a much better CPU upgrade experience with an upcoming 10th or 11th gen Ryzen CPU that could be releasing in the near future. And this kit I found here on Newegg, at least here in the US, is $220, and it is 6000 megahertz with a CAS latency of 30. All things considered, this is actually quite reasonable. As a matter of fact, I might buy one of these after this video, because at 220, it's not even a lower speed, it's 6000 megahertz CAS latency 30. That is quite good. So that is good to see, but we have to go with 16 gigabytes, which I think is completely fine in 2026. You only need 32 if I think you are really irresponsible with your memory management inside Windows and you just have a bunch of programs open at the same time as you're gaming. Just be a little bit more mindful of what's running in the background and you should be fine, and you will save yourself about 100 bucks going with 16 over 32, and there will be almost no performance difference in gaming. Once again, we have to go with the same 1TB M.2 SSD. Yes, we have to go with a DRAMless drive. We get it. A DRAM supported 1TB drive is going to be about 200 bucks. That is too much. We just want to go for pure storage here. And I think about the best one I could find is this Patriot P410 1TB. It's got 5000 megabyte read and write speeds, PCIe Gen 4.0, and it's one of the cheaper 1TB drives that is made by a reputable brand and not just some random Chinese brand. There's also the Micron 2500 1TB, which this actually features even faster read and write speeds of up to 7000 megabytes per second. And Micron is the same as Crucial, I think, which is surprising wondering why they aren't calling this crucial, but nonetheless, it's the same price and actually slightly faster than the other drive. Then for the case, once again, we're going to save money, go with a micro ATX PC case that is smaller, and this here is the Lee & Vector V100 Mini. This is pretty much the exact same as my last case that I used in the $1,000 build guide from last year. That was the regular V100, that was ATX. We're downsizing to micro ATX to save a bit of money, but we're still going to get 4 120mm ARGB fans in this case, and it's still going to look epic, and we're saving about 20 bucks all along the way. And I think we're going with pretty much the same power supply as the last one. And yeah, this will do some pretty decent 1440p gaming. I will probably be building this PC real soon just to show you guys its 1440p performance and that it's not actually that bad despite the memory crisis. And this would compare favorably to a $1,000 pre-built, because I've checked quite a few on Amazon and other websites, and they actually have like an RTX 5060 in them, which is not the worst, but they're using a last generation Ryzen or Intel CPU with last generation DDR4 memory, and this build uses the latest DDR5 memory on the latest Intel or AMD socket, or in this case, only AMD, because we're going with the Ryzen 5 7500F. So I would build this $1,000 PC over going with a pre-built right now. So let's keep moving forward and check out the $1,200 gaming PC build. Here I have, again, the same CPU. It's a great base. It's not going to bottleneck virtually anything that isn't an RTX 5080 or above. And for the CPU cooler, same thing. We're going to keep it low cost, save as much money as we can. Just a basic 4 heat pipe CPU cooler is going to be completely fine. But for the GPU, this is maybe the only thing I don't like about this build is the RX 9060 XT 16GB. This is a fantastic graphics card with 16 gigabytes of VRAM and can run a lot of things at 1440p at high frame rate, which is what you want. I'm just a little bit disgusted by the price. The MSRP of this graphics card is $350 and is currently retailing for as low as $440. That is a little disgusting, but is certainly a better option in terms of price to performance and even features, arguably, if you compare it to an RTX 5060 Ti 16GB that is retailing for well above $500. And paying that premium to get the 5060 Ti 16GB, even given its NVIDIA features, is just not worth it for gaming at this price point versus a 9060 XT 16GB. Otherwise, for the motherboard, we are going to go with a bigger case. So we're going to get an ATX sized B850 motherboard. Then for the RAM, once again, we're going with the same stuff as the last build, 16 gigabytes of DDR5 memory, especially if it's that 6000 megahertz cast latency 30 kit here provided by G.Skill for only $220. Same 1TB DRAM-less SSD. We have to do it for the $1,200 budget of this build. Then for the case, I mean, you can really go with whatever you want because the ATX form factor is widely supported. You can use any case you want, whether it's NZXT, Lee, Antec, Cooler Master, Corsair, whatever. For this build, I actually have the Montec X5 because that's the case I use in the build guide that is attached to it up here at the top if you want to see each of these builds done by hand. Then for the power supply though, we are going to amp it up to 750 surprisingly, although you could get away with 650 since we're only using a 9060 XT in this build guide. And with the $1,200 build, let's go ahead and move on to the notification that you should most likely like this video. If you've been enjoying it and you want to help out this video to get more views and more reach in the algorithm, especially to help out gamers and building some smart PCs. Despite the memory shortage, I've seen quite a few PC builds on YouTube that are kind of lackluster or they're even just straight up outdated. And with this website, I can keep all of these builds up to date with some simple software tweaks. So if you want to support this video, a like would be greatly appreciated. So here for the $1,500 gaming PC, I know the CPU says Intel Core Ultra 245K, and that may upset a lot of people who are watching this video. However, as of recording this video, Intel has announced 2 new gaming CPUs, the Intel Core Ultra 250K and the 270K. The 250K is the interesting one because it comes with more E-cores over the 245K on top of L3 cache improvements and core clock increases across all of the cores and threads. Sorry, just the cores. So although I have the 245K here as a placeholder, this is meant to be the 250K, which is going to retail for $200, and I'm pretty confident it is going to beat the Ryzen 5 9600X, which is what I originally would have used in this build list, but I'm going to go with Intel because because I want to be different. It's probably going to be faster, not just in gaming, but significantly more so in multi-threaded workstation and programming applications. Anyways, we're going to beef up the CPU cooler just a little bit, although you could get away with the same 4 heat pipe $17 cooler because Intel Core Ultra CPUs notoriously run quite cool out of the box. Then for the graphics card, we can't afford a higher end RX 9070. I would only go with this. Do not consider the RTX 5070. It is more expensive than this. It has slower rasterization performance and less VRAM, whereas this has 16 gigabytes of VRAM, more rasterization performance, and the ray tracing performance compared to the RTX 5070 is arguably on par. And paying the extra 30 to 40 bucks for a 5070 over a 9070 is not worth it. Then for the motherboard, because we're going with an Intel CPU, we have a B860 ATX motherboard with Wi-Fi. One thing I've noticed with a lot of these Intel motherboards is that they are substantially cheaper than Ryzen motherboards by about $20 to $30 while offering similar features and similar chipset specifications. So that is one positive with going with Intel Core Ultra CPUs, is that you do find cheaper motherboards. However, the RAM is the exact same, 16 gigabytes of DDR5 memory. Then for the storage, get a 1TB M.2 DRAMless SSD as usual. We have to go with this, but I promise you the next build list does have a bigger SSD, because I think after this you're definitely going to want more storage because you have more budget. And then for the PC case, again, it's ATX. You can virtually go with whatever you want. For the build guide I used for this build template, I used a Corsair 3500X, but once again it's ATX. The build process and the steps are going to be the exact same as any other ATX PC case I've used in any of my previous PC build guide tutorials. Now for the power supply, since we have that RX 9070, we could actually get away with a 750 watt 80 plus gold power supply, but for this build list I have that 850 watt 80 plus gold because the price difference is not that much and you get an extra 100 watts of support for even a bigger graphics card in the future if you end up getting one. Otherwise, this is going to be this is the most you probably want to spend on a gaming PC build. I've tested the RX 9070 and the RTX 5070 before in previous build guides and I was satisfied at 1440p. Anything beyond this, you're going to want to only play at 4K, and 4K certainly isn't cheap and arguably is not quite worth it unless you have like a top of the line RTX 5090 that can push well over 200 frames per second at 4K. Otherwise, a high frame rate 1440p gaming PC is really ideal for gaming nowadays, and this is probably the most I'd possibly spend on a PC build list, although I did promise there'd be one more build, which is the $2,000 gaming PC build. And this is one last reminder that if you've watched the video up until this point, that means you're invested and you might be a worthwhile subscriber to the Scattervolt channel. I mean, I would do it. If you've been watching this video up until this point and you haven't clicked off, you might like my videos. You might like my talking style. You might like my editing and music. And if that's the case, I've got more videos like this coming up. So definitely hit the subscribe button. Anyways, for the CPU, this one updated, but we're using that other new Intel Core Ultra CPU that was announced, the 270K. This will be better than the old 265K, and I think could be a better gaming CPU than the 9700X and the 7700X, while featuring more E-cores for better multi-threaded performance for anything that isn't any gaming applications. Yeah, sorry, I don't know. This is a long take, my bad. Otherwise, for the GPU, we're going to pair that up with an RX 9070 XT. We can finally afford one. We should have one of these in a $2,000 build, and I'll go ahead and spoil the beans for you. I checked the prices for the RTX 5070 Ti and 5080 in my previous GPUs of the month video, and they are not pretty. They're pretty bad, actually. And do not get them for gaming. Do not. Nope. If you actually wanted a 5070 Ti, be prepared to spend an additional $300 for technically less rasterization performance than what the 9070 XT offers you out of the box. Sure, the ray tracing performance is going to be better on the 5070 Ti, but I don't think it's $300 more better. Certainly not. And that DLSS 4 upscaler, certainly not worth it for an extra $300 over FSR 4 that is already on the 9070 XT. So you're going to want to go with this GPU. You are crazy to consider a 5070 Ti or 5080 in a DIY PC build for this much money. Then for the motherboard, going with a B860 ATX motherboard. Again, Intel based system, Intel motherboard. As far as these being supported out of the box without a BIOS update, we'll get confirmation on that soon once these CPUs do come out, because it would be very annoying to do that out of the box with a USB stick and to flash the BIOS. So again, I'll be monitoring these builds. If it's too much of a hassle, then I'll probably switch these back to Ryzen, since those are supported out of the box and I support convenience ultimately at the end of the day for any of these build lists. But otherwise, RAM, we can finally afford 32 gigabytes of 6000 megahertz cast latency 30 RAM, but nope, we are paying about an additional $120 over the previous 16 gigabyte kit of RAM. So this is ideal for a $2,000 gaming PC build only because we afford it, and I think 16 would be quite awkward in this premium of a build, on top of now finally getting 2 terabytes of M.2 storage. So finally an upgrade in terms of storage. You should be good with this much storage for most PC games on top of your operating system and any other programs. Then for the case, once again, it's an ATX case. You can virtually go with whatever you want. I'm with the Antec P30 ARGB because I used the P30 Air in a previous PC build template video. I quite enjoyed it. I think it's going to deliver a lot of airflow for the money, and since we want to save as much dollars as possible in these build guides given how expensive memory is, this is a very good price to performance PC case while not cheaping out. Then for the power supply, because we have the 9070 XT, we have to go with an 850 watt 80 plus gold power supply. And with that, that is the $2,000 gaming PC build, and those are our 5 PC build lists wrapped up for early 2026. If you want to see another one of these videos come summertime, be sure to give it a like and comment that down below. Or if there's any other types of PC builds I should explore or put on PCBuilds.gg, then also leave comments for that, and I'll definitely be reading them. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and this is the Skydival channel, signing out.